Welcome everyone to The Way It Is. I am your host, Luca Andolfatto with Remax Service First Realty. And this is actually the recording of episode 20, even though it's actually going to air in the 19th spot. And the reason is I know I always say I'm thrilled and delighted, but I am super excited and super proud today. And what a great way to mark the 20th/19th episode. I'm going to welcome my daughter, Mikaela Henderson, who is a registered dietitian. And by the way, happy belated Registered Dietitian Day. That was yesterday, right? And she is living and working in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So thanks for being here, Mikaela.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I know everyone that's going to watch the podcast is going to say, who do you look more like? But maybe they'll do that a quiz later on for a post or something like that, get some more traffic.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a bit of background on Mikaela. And so she is, as I said, a registered dietitian. She did her undergrad education in Antigonish, Nova Scotia at St. Francis Xavier University, where she got her human nutrition degree, followed by a human kinetics degree. And then got her International Olympics Committee diploma in sports nutrition. And so, yeah, she is certainly more than qualified. And I know she always gives dad tips when dad bugs her about it and stuff. So, Mikaela, I guess I do this podcast thing pretty casually and pretty informally. And with you being here, it's even more so. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, as I told you before, is March is Nutrition Month. So where did that come from? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I don't know the origins of exactly why March is the month, but there is a few reasons, or I guess a few ways that Nutrition Month came to be. It actually started over 30 years ago, which is pretty crazy because I feel like I never really heard about it until getting into the nutrition field or in school. But it really, the whole idea was to bring more public awareness to the profession of dietetics, healthy eating, and to really promote that dietitians are the most qualified source of information, or the most trusted source of information. So it did start back. They used to have little nutrition weeks in different provinces in the 70s, and then in the 80s they started a national nutrition week led by what is now called Dietitians of Canada. So Dietitians of Canada is a big membership-based society that really advocates for, moving the role of dietetics forward. So now at this point, as of the 90s, it's now a full month. And even I was doing some research today to see what Nutrition Month theme was in 1994 when I was born. And the theme was nourishing our children's future. So kind of interesting.
Oh, come
But
full
the
circle
theme of
then.
our month this year is good for you. Dietitians help you find your healthy. So really focusing on how healthy eating looks very differently for everyone, depending on your health, access to food, your culture, your traditions, heritage, and how as dietitians, we have, the most trusted information, and we can help you navigate, finding your healthy individually. And that might look different for each person.
Right. And exactly. So, I mean, I think because, we all have or are familiar with the Canada Food Guide, right? In terms of that graph that breaks out your different food groups, and you should have X number of gram or whatever percentage of each day. But you just touched on it. It's not a one catch-all template, right? It's very individualistic.
Yeah, I think what's nice is that nutrition is really moving more towards less of a cut and dry or one size fits all approach into more of an individualized, holistic approach, which I think is really important. even with the shift to our new food guide, which came out in, I guess it was like end of 2019 or early, yeah, it must have been end of 2019. We got our new food guide. So our food guide's now a plate and more looking at, incorporating fruits and vegetables instead of a prescriptive, we need X amount of servings per day. And also incorporating, more social implications of food, encouraging people to eat with others, cook your own food at home, incorporate more cultural and traditional foods, because we do have to recognize that, Canada is quite diverse, and it's really important to incorporate all those cultural and traditional foods. So, yeah.
Well, and I'll go down that little side road just for a second because, I grew up, well, you grew up eating the Italian that I knew, and I grew up eating the Italian that I knew. And, I have to think, even though, my mom did primarily all the cooking and certainly didn't have a food guide. I would have to say, thinking back, there was very few food items that were unhealthy or that I would classify as unhealthy. Do you find that with culturally speaking, that a lot of the ethnicities and different cultures that you see in the country primarily have a healthy food-based diet?
Yeah, I think when we eat a lot more of our cultural and traditional foods, for us being more, that Italian heritage, I think the biggest thing is that we have to get cooking, and we do have to cook a lot of these things from scratch. So we're really avoiding a lot of processed and packaged foods, and we're actually, making our own food, and that, instantly is going to make it a bit better for us. So, and generally a lot of our cultural foods do incorporate lots of, fruits and vegetables and whole grains through maybe whether it's pastas or rice, and of course different protein sources, whether they're meat or plant-based. So I think, yeah, in general, it is all really great food to eat, getting in touch with your culture, and also cooking those cultural foods, getting more in touch, that's going to improve your relationship with food. It's going to encourage you to cook more, and just kind of get you in the kitchen, getting you making better food choices, thinking about, what you're eating. So I think then it extends beyond just sort of, that meal being healthy. It extends beyond and kind of influences other choices that you may make, or even your perception and relationship with food.
Well, and you know what? Again, you just touched on something that I think has probably been a shift in the mindset towards food and nutrition. We'll get to the pandemic in a minute. That's the first time that I haven't started with it because it's obviously dominates everything. But people's relationship to and with food. And I think, obviously, I think the pandemic has exacerbated that in terms of highlighting the importance of a relationship with food. But we've seen the proliferation of all these food delivery services, right? The Hello Freshes, I can't even name all of them that are out there now. So obviously that speaks to the fact that it's a bit of a mind shift now in terms of food wasn't just there to fill a gap. Now it's something else, right?
And I think it's important that, especially in our, diet culture, and society today, our relationship with food can be quite positive, whether it's us kind of being excited about getting in the kitchen and maybe using a food delivery service or subscription to actually get us there. Or, for some people, it could actually be negative in terms of maybe food insecurity is an issue, or maybe disordered eating patterns are present. And we have some of those really negative, fearful relationships with food. Again, getting into the COVID thing, I think that might have exacerbated some of the negative relationships. But for some people, food has become a bit of a coping mechanism and a way to, reconnect, whether it's, even you and I have had the conversation over COVID, not being able to get home for a lot of things and being able to still connect with family just by cooking a meal here, right? And so that it can be quite powerful, even though it might not seem like it's really related to health. We have to think of health beyond just, food as fuel, and just take that holistic view of health and how food can influence all of those different areas.
So the pandemic, obviously, you worked at a clinic where you had intake and people that would come to see you for programs. You also do sports nutrition for one of the universities there for their teams. I guess the first point is, how have you seen, from the start of the pandemic, a year through it now, the East Coast, you guys have been fortunate. You handled the pandemic probably better than, you're an example to not only the country, but a lot of the world in terms of how it should have been dealt with. But what's your experience with how the pandemic affected people's eating habits, choices, and you touched on with both, bad relationships with food and good relationships with food. So.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of change with everyone now being home. For those that are fortunate to not have been maybe laid off or et cetera. For some people, I'm finding now, people are now being more comfortable to come out. And like you said, in Nova Scotia, we are quite fortunate with our current COVID situation. So people are now kind of feeling a bit more comfortable to start to seek their usual service. And I'm seeing a lot of people where they got put in their home setting, and all that, maybe those good habits that they had around food prep, or maybe meal prep, getting some lunches ready for maybe whether it's the next day or the week, because they were home, that kind of all fell off. And that either led to maybe some overeating because the fridge is right there and you're working at your kitchen table, or even some undereating, or kind of actually having to lean more towards takeout and what have you, because, oh, well, I'm home, so I'm going to be able to, just cook dinner every night. But your work gets crazy. People have a hard time disassociating from work when they are working from home, maybe working later into the night, and then, oh, miss dinner, don't want to have to prep it now, and then have to kind of reach for that takeout or something like that. So I think we've kind of seen a shift of being home made people kind of drop some of those really healthy habits that they had, and just trying to adjust to, how do I manage my eating when I'm not actually going to the work and I don't have to pack a lunch? How do I manage that at home, in many different ways has been a common theme among many.
So, and we all know also too, physical exercise or some form of exercise is important to, I guess, a holistic all around healthy lifestyle. But, a lot of people aren't active or not as active as others. I guess that highlights the importance then even more so of a healthy nutritional diet, right? So how are how can people compensate for a lack of physical activity or exercise through nutrition?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, we want to try to make sure we are, eating within our needs, and making sure that we do try to get some form of exercise, not for, weight, even just for overall health. Like you mentioned, exercise is really important for all of our health, including our mental health. And especially with how we're home all the time and going through this stressful situation, exercise becomes even more important. But couple things that we can do, obviously seek out the help of a dietitian if you can, if that's within your means right now. Also, a lot of insurance providers do cover dietitian services, so something to look into through your work. And really nice is a lot of dietitians are working virtually right now, so COVID wise, no issues there. If seeing a dietitian right now isn't something that is going to fit in, we can even just take a first step in the direction of looking at that new Canada's Food Guide plate. So, the plate is broken down into a quarter protein, a quarter whole grains, and half fruits and or veg. So even just taking a look at that, taking a peek at what your meals are looking like, maybe we could add some more vegetables. Maybe we could choose whole grain foods more often, swapping out the white bread or white pasta for a whole grain option or a whole wheat option, would be a couple really great steps in the right direction. And then listening to your body. So your body really does give some really great cues on when we're hungry, when we're maybe not so hungry, what we might need in that instance, whether it's dealing with some stress or dealing with some anxiety, or celebrating at home and figuring out this new way of doing, birthdays and that type of thing. But listening to your body, it gives a lot of great natural cues. So focusing in on that is also going to be great. And setting some health related outcomes that aren't weight focused. So a lot of people come in really focused on their weight, maybe over this past year, weight did creep up a little bit. And one thing we do want to focus on is, let's get you healthy and feeling better. What are some goals that we can focus on that aren't just weight loss or that number? What's going to be better when we're that little bit lighter? Are we going to be able to get up off the couch more easily, have less pain when we're moving around, pick up the grandkids, et cetera? So what are some other health related outcomes that we can focus on? And then, the weight loss will come, as it does. And as we make adjustments or you make adjustments to move forward.
Well, again, you raised some really good points there, because I think, the perception is that to eat healthy and to be, get all your nutritional components is overwhelming for a lot of people and daunting, that they'd have to spend, an hour in the grocery store going down every aisle trying to find these specific items, or that has X, grams of whatever you need, or the proteins or the whatever. And then, you tie into that food insecurity, which you touched on, because let's face it, there are a lot of families, sadly, in the world, in Canada, and I'm sure in Halifax, I know in Kingston, that suffer food insecurity, and so they can't get everything. So I guess from your perspective as a dietitian and nutritionist, the ideal world, the ideal scenario is, yes, always try to have X, but I guess what are the defaults, or what are the sort of the options that are available to people that are in those positions?
Yeah, I think, the best that we can do is just, figuring out what's within our means. If we can get veggies in any form, fruits and vegetables, canned, frozen, fresh, that works. Doesn't have to be, very expensive, fresh produce, but trying to make sure we're a bit of a cliche, but eating the rainbow if we can, whether that's canned products or, frozen, that is all good. Again, those whole grain options or whole wheat options, like rice, really nice option if we're thinking budget friendly. And maybe leaning more towards some plant-based protein options as well. Chickpeas, beans, lentils, those are really economical in the grocery store. So that's also a really great option, using our canned tuna, canned salmon, all of that stuff. Sometimes those things can get a bit of a bad rap because, it's canned and it's not, I don't know, all these crazy social media terms out there. But it's all good. Like, it's all fresh products that was just put in a can to last longer, right?
Right.
So no issue for reaching for those.
So that wouldn't constitute processed, right? In that regard, as far as like, if you're buying, everybody, I think the biggest, the worst culprit, I guess, is the sort of packaged meats, if you will, like the sliced hams and the sliced roast beefs and things like that. But a canned veggies and canned tuna wouldn't be in that classification, would they?
No, technically it is processed. Like, all of our food is, processed to a certain degree.
Comes from a farm and gets shipped to us. Yeah, it's going to be processed in some form. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, no, any of our canned products are all good. Thinking about the veggies, even canned meats, we might want to watch out for the sodium, maybe depending on if we have a certain health condition, maybe we're living with high blood pressure or heart disease, we might want to watch out for that. But we can also just give them a rinse, open the can, rinse all that kind of salt off, and that makes it a nice option. If we're doing the canned fruit, maybe we look for packed in water versus packed in juice or syrup. Again, just reducing some added sugar content there. But otherwise, all those fruits and vegetables are, they're picked at their peak freshness. They're cut up and just put in a preservative brine to keep well, right? So that's so no issue there. Same with frozen. Picked at its peak freshness, and then just flash frozen and put into the bag. So no concerns with any of those. In terms of like the deli meat and stuff, that actually can even get a little bit pricey if we're thinking budget conscious. And the biggest thing there is, some of the nitrates that we might have heard of over the past couple of years. But if we're thinking of, our canned fish options, we wouldn't have any issue there. So yeah.
Good. So you mentioned it earlier, and I shelled it for later to ask, but you said the body gives you cues in terms of how you're responding to food, I guess, or when you're hungry, when you're not hungry. I know I am probably the worst offender, but cravings when you get, and my guilty indulgences are Haagen-Dazs ice cream or a row of Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies or something like that. Where do those where do those cravings come from? Is that the body being deficient in something? What's happening there?
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, we might just be hungry, and that's just a food that we enjoy, and so we will then crave it. A lot of times we're bored, thinking of maybe we're typically getting these cravings when we're watching our shows at night or scrolling through our phone, right? That those are typically just boredom, right? Our brain is just kind of trying to find something to do. So that's kind of the only really real evidence we have. We don't really have a ton of evidence for where cravings come from. There is some things looking at, if you're craving things that might be iron rich, maybe you're a bit iron deficient. I'm not totally up on the research there.
That's okay. No. But what is, I mean, apart from sheer willpower, what do you do? I guess. I mean, I know everybody says, "Oh, grab a thing of celery sticks or whatever and stuff." Well, that certainly doesn't taste as good as chocolate Haagen-Dazs ice cream, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is trying to recognize if you're actually hungry or if you are just bored, right? So which is really hard to do and does take a lot of practice. So maybe thinking, taking a couple minutes to just reflect on, oh, yeah, it does seem like I'm usually getting this craving, maybe around 9 o'clock once I've had a show on for a little bit. Maybe I'm not actually hungry. Maybe we didn't eat a really big dinner. And at that point, yeah, let's have a snack. I think the biggest thing is recognizing that it's okay to have a snack at night or, when we're watching our show, etc. Do we want it to be a tub of Haagen-Dazs ice cream every night? Probably not. But, if we did, a couple scoops, a couple nights a week, that's not going to be the end of the world. And maybe we keep some other options in our fridge, like some yogurts or fruits that might be on the sweeter side, if that's sort of what we usually crave. And then that way, we're still getting some extra nutrients in there as well. You can always try, having a glass of water with your snack. So maybe you're just a little bit thirsty. So you're having your snack, you're also rehydrating, and that might help some of the cravings. Making sure we're not mindlessly eating, great if we want to watch a show and have a snack. But if it becomes an issue where then, the whole bag of chips is gone and I didn't realize, maybe we should just throw our portion into a bowl instead of bringing the whole bag over. So that way we're not just kind of mindlessly not actually enjoying or savoring the food that we're.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And so what about this, I know because I always used to be careful and stuff, but they always say don't eat after a certain hour in the evening. So if you're hungry and all of a sudden, I know I've done it, I'll go up and make myself a sandwich at 10 o'clock at night and then fall asleep summarily right after on the couch at 10:30. But does that add calories? Does that add weight? Is that a bad thing? What is that?
Good question. So really, like if we eat the sandwich at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., there's not going to be much difference, right? Our body's just going to process the food. Might process a lot more slowly when we're asleep because we're not as active. Our body's not doing as much. For some people, they just can't fall asleep on a full stomach. So eating too close to, bedtime isn't going to be great for them. They're just not going to feel good or not going to fall asleep as easily. If you struggle with reflux, that laying down kind of doesn't allow gravity to do its work. So then that might bother you having, had a meal or had a snack within 30 to 60 minutes of then becoming horizontal, because gravity can't help you out in that regard. But otherwise, no worries. If you're hungry and you got to eat, grab your sandwich. That's all good. Doesn't make any difference over the course. We're not going to gain or lose any more weight if we're eating at night or not.
The idea of fast food, of course, where our society is, it's ubiquitous with our society, right? I mean, from everything from A to Z. I'm guessing, I'm guessing, I'm pretty certain, right? Those foods are packed with nitrates and things that probably aren't the best for you. And so to continually have that kind of thing is probably not a good a food option, right? So,
yeah, the fast food, thinking of traditional fast food being like burger and fries or like chicken nuggets or something. Lots of things in there. Yeah, we might be getting some protein from like our burger patty and stuff, which is good. But generally, we are getting some more empty calories, if you will. So we're just getting a ton of calories from a lot of fried fat, which isn't necessarily the best option, right? We're also getting lots of sodium. If we're getting like a pop or a iced tea or something, then we're getting a lot of extra sugar in there, and nothing really else in return. So that's definitely not the best option that we want to lean towards. In some cases, it's kind of our only option. Now, I know a lot of us aren't doing a lot of road trips or anything right now, so that, might not be so much the case. But yeah, trying to avoid that, trying to cook at home, or maybe reaching for like a sandwich fast food option instead, if that's kind of a way that we have to go, where now we have so many kind of quick, even like noodle places and different things like that might be a better option than kind of the traditional chicken nuggets and fries with a Coke.
yeah, I know. Well, I feel guilty because I know you and your brother had a lot of chicken nuggets when we were doing from soccer to hockey or whatever and stuff. So, but no, we have the freshies now, right? Where you can go get a salad bowl, and there's even those. The burrito places. Granted, it's a basically a wrap shoved with beans, right, and then some kind of protein, right? So it can't be.
Great. Those burrito options are great. Even like our shawarma options now. I don't know as much if that's as big of a thing in Kingston these days, but in Halifax, we've got quite a few shawarma places around. A shawarma wrap can be a really good option as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? We could do this for the whole afternoon, but people would probably stop listening after a while. But so sort of wrapping up a little bit here now, what would be, so if someone said, well, I'm going to ask you now, so what would you say to any audience out there, anybody out there who's, listen to this now thinking, oh, well, yeah, I do that, or I've got this, or what are sort of just some basic fundamentals someone can take away to say, hey, listen, I want to start eating a better, more nutritional diet that's not going to make me crazy, not going to break my budget, not going to make me have to go to 5 different grocery stores to find my ingredients and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think figure out the foods that you really enjoy, and be open to trying some new foods. So ideally, if we could get, a fruit or vegetable with each meal, that would be great, right? So maybe figuring out a couple of fruits and veggies you really like, maybe try a couple new ones when you're at the store, to get a bit of a variety. Try to get a protein source with each meal, right? Whether that's plant-based or not, either works. And then when we are choosing our grain products, let's choose a whole grain if we can. So that's like our rice, our quinoa, our whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta. If we can choose whole grain, make that choice. Yeah. I think those would be kind of some really, basic. Let's try to get our 3 meals a day, try to get our fruits and veggies in there. Choose our protein source, and I think be adventurous, because sometimes we have this vision of, okay, if I want to be healthy, that means what everyone on Instagram is eating is just like chicken and broccoli and rice, and it's pretty in this like little takeout box, and and that isn't healthy for everyone, right? That's not what health might look like for everyone. I know for me, definitely that is not something that I would enjoy doing all the time. So making sure that you find something that works for you, that's a nice variety. And again, aiming for those fruits and veggies in there, a protein source, and then whole grain when we have the option.
Very good. Great, Mikaela. And so, and unfortunately, I can't even be the parent that tries to funnel business to my daughter because she's only registered to practice in the province of Nova Scotia. So she can't, she can't, not to say that you couldn't reach out to her and she'd offer some consultation or a free consultation. But no, I thank you so much for being part of this. It was great. I really appreciate it. And you've actually even opened my eyes and to some things that I wasn't aware of. And I think our listeners probably did the same. So thank you. And I'll talk to you later on whenever. So.
Yeah. And just if you are looking for any nutrition advice, and you're on social media, try to be smart about who you follow. Try to follow dietitians because there is a lot of crazy stuff out there. And you can feel free to follow me at Our Journey Through Food on Instagram if you would like.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's great. All right, honey. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.